I've come to realize over the years that uh, my political attitudes toward the whole issues likewise diverge. So I don't share many of the same political views about the whole Olelo Hawaii phenomenon
Mhm.
that's going on today.
Mhm.
uh, with those who do come from the university, the immersion school, the classroom experience. Um, and for example, I don't agree that we have to write with Okina and Kahako. To me, that's amateur. It's baby talk. It's
Mhm.
training wheels. One is called Okina, one is called Kahako. Who keeps their training wheels the whole rest of their life? No, you toss them away. If native speaker talk represents the bar that we're all trying to reach, they don't use Okina
Mhm.
Kahako. So go there. you know,
Mhm.
use the Okina and Kahako as aids to get you there only, but why hold on to them when it's unnecessary? When it's unnecessary. So I don't share that political view that you must use Okina Kahako all the time. To me,
Mhm.
it's amateur. It's baby talk.
Yeah, that's something that I recently noticed in the last couple years since following Maluhia, and even some other friends like Brad Watanabe from the Green. He doesn't use Okina and Kakos.
Nice.
Um, and for me, it's like it's so hard for me to not put it because my whole life is indoctrination, right? Just Okina Kako.
Well,
If you
you
don't
you
have
were
it,
never told anything different.
exactly. But then I understand the perspective of like the Bible, like the New Pepa, there was no Okina and Kahakos
Yeah,
written.
yeah.
So, and Hawaiian is not even a written language. It was always an oral language.
Well, if you
So
go back far enough, yeah.
yeah, but the reason that it was Okina and Kakos and everything was put in was so that other people could learn, right?
Well, yes, but and only since
Mhm.
1957. In the 1800s, the field of linguistics didn't exist. It
Mm.
wasn't a thing. So this idea of doing those marks in a systematic way wasn't a thing at all. It didn't. That emerged towards the back end of the 1800s. So it didn't exist in the 1820s when by committee voted on the. That's one thing I regret as well of what happened back then. And shout out to Poki Iseto and his PhD work because we need solid thinkers who think that, well, if we kind of regret, you might say in a certain sense, that back in the 1820s when they settled on the Hawaiian alphabet without Okina um, and without Kahako, that the alphabet itself was not a true representation of our language. So the Nihao language today, where you have K and T, you have the L pronunciation and the Spanish R pronunciation, that was representative of the language of the era, 1820s. And it was by this committee of foreigners who went, how many of you want to go only K? Okay, 7 raised their hand. How many of you want T? And 6 raised their hand. Well, the 7 won.
That's how it was decided?
Yes. And then
That's the reason we don't use T's
you
and
never know that.
no.
And then how many of you want L? And the L's raised their hand. How many of you want the Spanish R because they knew that they were the same thing?
Uh-huh.
And one less raised the hand. And so the L won. And how many wanted a V and how many wanted the W? Well, the concession was, or the agreement was, we'll stick with W, but know that it can be pronounced like
As
a
a
V, like
V.
in German.
So that's why it's like Hawaii or Hawaii.
Yeah.
Hawaii, vai.
And my grandma, Nihao speakers, you're fluid. There's no one way to do it.
Mhm.
And it annoys me that through the classroom and majority of my colleagues who are teachers of Hawaiian in classrooms insist that it must be pronounced like a V. That's annoying to me. It's annoying. It must
Yeah.
always be V. No, that's not true. It's not a true representation of how native speakers talk. Um, so to me, I'm disappointed that back then these choices were made. Why did they do that? Why did they have a vote? Because we needed to publish the Bible.
Mhm.
So I don't appreciate the new release of the Hawaiian Bible with all the Okina and Kahako in there. I don't appreciate it. I don't need it for one thing. I can read perfectly fine without it. I have a few copies of the what I call the real Hawaiian Bible, which is the earlier editions that don't have okinakako. Once in a while, you have the apostrophe. Keep that in mind. There's a difference between ko and ko'u, right? So that apostrophe, ko'u, had always been there since the 1820s to distinguish ko'u, no. Uh, so there's that. And I don't appreciate the new edition of the Hawaiian Bible with okinakako. It's not necessary. And some of the decisions that were made in certain words,
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with. I don't agree that ho'o wawaha is one example that comes to mind. No, my grandma, native speakers, Ni'eho people, this word, you pronounce it ho'o wawaha, but waha, to like, not scold, kind of like scold, but when you gas somebody, yeah, you nail somebody
Mm-hmm.
with your talk, ho'o wawaha. But I know that I'm aware that in the Pukui Albert Dictionary, that word is ho'o waha waha with kahako,
Mm-hmm.
and that's bizarre to me. I don't know why, and I wasn't there to understand. I've never heard any native speakers say ho'o waha waha, but they go for that because it was there. I've never heard a native speaker say that, and that's just one example. There are other examples of word choices that were made when creating the Okinakahako versions of text. And yet here I am, being a hypocrite, doing Harry Potter and all this with what? Okinakahako. Why did I do that? I made a conscious decision to meet my readership halfway.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't normally agree by myself for if I knew that I could make all the choices and make all the rules and stuff like that. I would try and mimic that style of native speaker writing that you might see that came across from the 1800s into the 1900s, because that represents the bar.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bar. This is how native speakers write and read and how they pronounce. If you really needed the Okinakako, I'm sorry, you're an amateur. You're still learning.
I think maybe we're just not there yet
Yeah, we're not. And I agree with you on
yeah,
that. We're not there yet.
So much
So,
has been lost.
and therefore, I made this
Yeah.
agreement with myself that I'm going to give everybody a solid, and just meet them halfway
Yeah.
and just go ahead and do this. And if you're going to do it, you have to be consistent. You cannot be flip-flopping halfway through. You got to stay consistent because there's logic involved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't want to confuse my readers.
Yeah. It's such an interesting debate too, because for me, like, I don't need the Okina and Kakos because I can understand. And like, my dad learned from the Baipala Hemulele and like going to church and speaking with the Manaleos over there. So it's not necessary. Like, we don't always have to put it, but it's really just my Kayapuni side that
Yeah.
makes me do it.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to decide how I want to do it, but I think eventually, like you said, this is the pinnacle. This is the goal of where we want to be as native speakers. Eventually, then hopefully none of us will have to do it because we all understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're just not there yet.
We're not there yet. I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah. So people that I come across, if I come to know, or if I do know that they can handle like this conversation entirely in Hawaiian, I feel zero need to use Okinakako. I'm assuming that you can. But there are those who, similarly to us, we engage with each other, and then I'll do the writing to them in an email or in a text or whatever without Okinakako. But they, like you, feel they cannot let go of the Okinakako. They must use Okinakako. And I read the text, and sometimes I'll laugh. I was like, sometimes I'll be like, seriously, guy, you didn't need that. So it has its place.